we're still not going to be revealing everything, because like we said, the development is still in progress. It's still going to take a few weeks to get everything out. So we don't want to start hyping things up too much before everything's ready. And yeah, but we did think that it was necessary to communicate with you guys, make sure that everyone is aware of what the team is doing, and what options we're considering, what we think of the current situation. I know everyone's been frustrated about the current price action. Obviously, it frustrates us too, but um, we thought it would be important for the community to have some sort of access to us, and where we could explain what we think about it, what our strategies are, and where our heads are at. So I think we can jump right in. Some people asked a few questions already on the community AMA questions tab. I'm also going to be letting people come over here, join the speakers if you want to, and ask questions there. If not, and people are shy, then that's fine as well. So let's start with the first question, which is from Screwed RTD. Well, he starts with when V2, when Peg, when NFT, when Moon. I think you know the basic questions the community wants answers to. I want to ask something different. One, after the launch of new features like V2 or others, are there plans to start a marketing campaign to attract new people to the project? And any ideas for cooperation with other projects? Well, for starters, yes. So here is something that we've come up across a lot, and it's had its negative impacts and its positive impacts. And so when we launched, let's say, people were looking for tomb forks. It's what we were trying to market ourselves as, because there was a huge demand for it, and it was sort of like a gold rush of tomb forks at the time, which, well, DeFi moved so fast that it was like 3 months ago, but it feels like years. But at that time, being a tomb fork was what we were trying to market, because that's what was sought after and that's what people wanted. But from the current oversaturation that we have seen, I mean, so many launched and so many collapsed within days. There were so many drugs. There were so many projects that just didn't last even a few days. This sort of created a giant issue around it, and at the same time, being a tomb fork kind of became a lot, a lot, a lot more poorly seen, and this created some barriers, which is a lot of marketing guys and a lot of influencers don't want to work or expose or promote tomb forks because, well, they're afraid that they don't want to promote something that is extremely volatile to their communities. What we are trying to create here with V2 and with these other features is that it's going to be difficult to call Scarab just a senior Ash protocol. It's going to be very hard to look at what we are and just say, well, that's a tomb fork, because we are planning to massively just shift away from just being a senior Ash protocol. And with that, will is our hope, at least, that it comes with a little bit of a different mindset for people when they're looking at us, and for influencers when they're looking at us, and marketing guys when they're looking at us, because it sort of changes the narrative a little bit. Well, you're not just a tomb fork anymore, and if you can prove that you've built something different that has some sort of durability and that is actually robust, then people don't have to be worried about promoting you like that, because they're not risking their community getting wrecked. And so we are planning on doing a giant push, just running up to V2, And before, I mean, we're doing a lot more to communicate with the community and to expand that contact. And we're going to start going into other AMAs and other communities and bringing on guests here to attract some people. And yes, we have cooperations with other projects in the works. But the idea here is that we want to bridge that gap and take advantage of us doing that and get the biggest advantage in the marketing side, which is access to all these influencers that won't currently promote us or help us in that regard. And not it's not even like it's in a malicious way. It's just they're afraid of you know promoting a risky project to their communities. And yes, for the second question, yes, we do have ideas for cooperation with other projects, and we're going to be revealing some things in the future about this. For the third question from Mental Imprint, he asked three questions. Although may not be a part of this project, I understand that Tomb is becoming a layer 2 infrastructure coin built on Phantom as per Harry Ye. What does that mean exactly? And will Scarab also go down this route? No, we've never really considered this. I gotta say that from a dev's perspective, it would be cool, to be honest. But no, we've never really tried to turn ourselves into a layer 2 or create a chain out of Scarab. I think it's also something that it takes really deep liquidity to be able to do something like that and pull something like that off. And Scarab would have to be like 100 times bigger for something like that to even be possible. But yeah, it's not really something we've considered. I mean, making a chain is not really the best way to for Scarab at least. It's not the best way to go about this situation. Are there anti-fudster policies for the chat rooms? No. So here's the thing. For the chat room policies, I have tried to convey to everyone that people can speak their minds and ask us questions freely. If they get disrespectful towards other community members or towards the mods, that's where banning and those sort of things will have to step in. And if people are just being unreasonable and just insulting people or just constantly putting out the same argument over and over, even if it's rebutted, even if there's a rebuttal. Those sorts of things will make the mod step in, but we do try to make it as open as possible. Obviously, sometimes people get banned because sometimes some community members can get disrespectful, but I think our mods do a pretty good job of letting people speak their minds and just keeping a relaxed environment in a chat room to try to make sure that people feel comfortable in there. As I was saying, um, we've always made it pretty clear that we wanted to expand it to other things, and we didn't want to just be a senior Rosh protocol. Here's why, and I think some of the older community members might know. but some of the new people might want us to explain. Um, and the reality is very simple. Um, Longevity and sustainability have always been our goals. Um, we are quite a lot of believers in one of actually Andre Cronge's sort of design theories, which is you can build something, it's a model that is supposed to make sense and work in and of itself. And you make it fully independent from yourself. That's the end goal. Because everything's automated by smart contracts. And at the end, you just created a system that just works. You could die and it would still work. That's the end goal for Scarab. And in order for us to create that, we can't just be a senior Roche protocol because that's just not possible in a senior Roche protocol. Just a pure senior Roche protocol where it only has a boardroom and the pegged token LP and the shares token LP. And let's take that and apply it in a test scenario, let's say. That is impossible to make decentralized. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Let's point out to the most successful, let's say, senior Roche protocol we've seen so far, which is Tomb. That you can call Tomb many things, you can have your opinions about it. One thing it is not is decentralized. It is controlled by absolute price, you know, manipulation and just complete control of it through someone who can just throw bags around. And that's not it. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not trying to throw shade or anything. But the reality is that it just doesn't work in a decentralized manner because it's not possible. It takes concentrating, it takes constant um controlling of the system because you have to play that game, and that is not a function. That does not mean that the system is functioning. That just means that you are manipulating the circumstances in order to feed it and make sure that it lives, which um, is a sign of a flawed protocol in our minds. Our goal is to expand Scarab enough and the ecosystem enough that it will, if we all four of us just said we have a team doing maintenance here and we introduced governance and we disappeared for a year, it would still be there working the same way, and it could still, maintain its price action relatively positively without suffering too much because the system itself makes sense and it's offering services that make sense. And by investing in the LP, for example, you'd just be getting a share of what the protocol generates. That is how, in our mind, a DeFi project and a decentralized application should work. And obviously, it's not quite like that. Obviously, every project needs to have updates and maintenance. But my point would be that unlike most projects where they are built from ground up in a sustainable manner, Senior protocols require the sort of handling that most projects don't. And for us to be able to and reach our end goal, which would be a completely sustainable protocol, you really cannot have just the normal, um, senior mechanics, and that is not that has never been our goal. From Probe Keys, what is the new token about? How is the partnership with Beethoven X going? And will you continue to get Spur bribes through the Olaf Finance? There was no bribe on Spur swap this week. So let's start with the bribes. We have been, so if you've been paying attention, we've been getting quite a lot of percentages of votes in the Spur swap gauges. The reason for it is threefold. So, we have been buying bribes from Olaf Finance. That is true. We've been using our own voting power, which is also quite significant. and we have also been acquiring votes from other parties in the back stages. That is why we have been able to acquire well, it's always been around 10.5 to 11 or 10 and 11%. Um, that is the reason we've been able to acquire that much. The last 3 weeks in the gauges, we were always the pair. Our Scarab G Scarab pair was always the one with the second highest emissions, and we hope and believe that this week should have a similar result. In terms of the partnership with Beethoven X is going, we have some stuff planned for them. There's quite a lot in development in that regard. Um, we can announce probably now that next week for this next gauge round, we're going to be doing. I will be talking to Jeffrey probably tomorrow, to be added to Votehoven, for the next round of gauge bribes, and we'll be doing bribes in order to put a pool there. It's going to be a Scarab 80-20 Phantom pool, so Scarab 80%, Phantom 20%. The end goal here would be that people could um, almost single stake their Scarab with lower impermanent loss or impermanent win if you're buying Scarab to try to um, buy before peg. It would be easier to be able to yield with that if it's an 80-20 pool, and that should help us incentivize this at the same time as it creates more space for more liquidity from Scarab to be deployed and generate revenue. At the same time, for us, it's quite ideal because that means that we can deploy a lot more of the Scarab that we currently have inactive on that pool and generate more revenue for the treasury, which is always incredibly valuable. Um, I also wanted to answer a little bit about what the new token is about. We've mentioned um, that we would have liquidity mining added to our services. I will explain a little bit more about how this will work. Yes, there will be a new token, and this will be the token that is yielded in our liquidity mining farms, and at the same time, we will be having an in-house leveraging option inside of our farms and inside of our vaults for the farms that we have on our platform. What we are hoping that this creates, and what we believe that this allows for, is that first, it creates a new mechanism and a new way to generate yield on Scarab by lending your token single staking and generating revenue from borrow APR from leveraged LPs. At the same time, you will be able to yield on our platform with competitive yields that will be provided in this new token, um, and you can have leveraged LPs in that farm. What we'll be doing there is we'll be staking your LPs in the original platforms where they're staked. We're going to be adding a little bit of a twist, but I don't want to reveal it just yet. But we're going to be adding a little bit of a twist so we can have a competitive edge over people in that department and the projects that are already on that area. But the goal would be that you can have a competitive yield on our platform, and at the same time we're generating revenue. Now, one of the things that we know from financial markets is that once you introduce leverage to any sort of market, what really happens is you see a giant expansion of the growth rate. And we believe that the same thing can happen here, where once we introduce leverage to our system, that just speeds up the velocity at which we can generate revenue, because people can not just farm with their normal LPs with an already competitive APR, but they can be leveraged in those LPs for added yield, but At the same time, that means that we're yielding more without without really risking being leveraged ourselves. At the same time, um, this also gives the treasury another revenue stream that's coming from liquidations. Now, we decided to take some inspiration from Liquid Driver in this model because the way we really see it with Liquid Driver is here's the incentive to hold Liquid Driver. You're either providing liquidity and they can boost a little bit of their emissions for you in their own token, or you can be locking yourself and getting a giant share of the revenue. So this is what we're also going to be doing. Once you lock yourselves, you can with this new token, you can get a share of the revenue. But here's the thing: when you introduce in-house leveraging options, that means that you're getting revenue also from borrow APYs and from liquidations. This means that we can provide an even greater improvement to that vault because we can be adding in LPs that people have gotten liquidated to as a percentage of what the treasury be getting, and you can be adding in assets that people are paying in borrow APYs. So the goal here is that you we're going to be creating a lot more revenue for the treasury and inside of a system that makes sense and boosts what we can have. Now, there's a lot that we haven't gotten into yet and that we don't want to reveal just yet, but there's a few changes that we still want to um that we still want to add and that we will be revealing in the future, but that is sort of what the new token is going to be looking like. Um, what future steps should holders be excited about? Are there any existing competitors to V2 of Scarab or new partners? So, I guess we could call Liquid Driver and Taro competitors in that department, but I think that our offer is quite different from Taro still, and we're going to be introducing a way to not directly also benefit Liquid Driver in the way that we're acting so that we are not direct competitors or enemies to them in a way. We'll reveal more about this in the future. But yeah, in terms of new partners, well, this does open the window to partnering up with other dexes because we can be providing a few services to them with which is not just provide boosted APRs, incentivizing liquidity for them, but at the same time, also providing leveraging options on their platform, which obviously for DEX it's very useful because it means that um, there's a lot more TVL that's coming into it. So we can help incentivize liquidity for these platforms, and we're hoping that with our growth, it's gonna become more and more valuable. At the same time, we are continuing to see the expansion of governance models, and we believe that a system like this lends itself to being a lot more scalable when it comes to launching governance systems for different platforms. So what we're hoping is that once V2 is out there, we can start launching governance models that are far easier to sustain and at the same time um, a lot easier to build because we already have the infrastructure. All we really need to do then is to incorporate a new governance token and a new governance model within our system. So um, we are going to be planning a lot. Um, we are gonna be planning um, a lot of a lot of more partnerships from from our launch of V2 because it just means that it's gonna make us more scalable when preparing these. So also from Neat, can we get some timelines announced? I think the uncertainty of the coming day updates is not helping in the short term. So the reason we haven't been giving out a specific timeline as of yet is sorry guys, my internet's cutting out. But the reason we haven't put out clear dates as of yet is twofold. First, there's a lot that's still in development, and um, we do have other things coming out first before V2. So I have told people before our NFTs are going to be coming out in about a week and a half's time right now, and that is what in line with what we had scheduled. I'm not going to give certain dates because we only like giving certain dates a few days out from this launch, just because it is very difficult to present dates and then have delays, and delays are very hard to predict in in DeFi and in software development. So we don't like giving out a too specific of a schedule way before launch time. So for V2, like we have said, it's still a few weeks out. I would say 3 to 4 weeks still. Um, and it's not something that we want to be promising to deliver just like right now, because we have made it very clear that it's not ready, and we're not gonna launch a half-baked idea. But um, the the reality is, it is difficult to be providing um, exact timelines on everything, because software development, it can be quite unpredictable, and we don't want to be failing on our word and promising dates that we can't uphold. Um, so a roadmap would be awesome, and true, we will be posting a map on our documentation, and new updated roadmap on our documentation shortly, because we agree. And there's a lot that needs to be updated when you put out a roadmap, and it quickly gets outdated because things move so fast in DeFi. So we are going to be posting another one with more specifics and some more things that are going to be coming out later in the year, and what we have planned. But um, yeah, let's say that we we know, and we agree, it's just been so chaotic in these past weeks that it's been hard to get to. Um, so okay, from Jexub, um, the main question for that design approach is, in Scarab, have you run actual revenue simulations on your map model? Let me just say, holy shit, brain boiling with alpha. So we actually have, and for V2, we fully expect it to really massively expand upon it, because by V2 coming out, here's what we're expecting to have. We're expecting to be generating revenue from our leveraged LPs, from borrow APYs. We're expecting to generate revenue from what people are yielding, and from what leveraged people are yielding. Um, okay, my phone is just killing me now. But as I was saying, um, the fact that we can choose where we're going and have the leveraged yield farming on any platform that we want to really, and do liquidity mining for them, which can also help expand our governance models at the same time. This really makes it a lot easier for us to expand upon what we currently have. Um, Currently, Sinsprit has been by far um our most profitable solution, and obviously right now there's a problem with it. Actually, we have a buyback and burn plan coming with V2 that has a few different steps. So first is um opening up another Sinsprit Spirit pool um on Beethoven and incentivize the one we currently have on Spirit Swap. And then use this to be able to basically have a place where that liquidity can be stored. Then minting of Sinspert is completely shut down because now there is a new token that's going to be providing rewards, and it's not just going to be on yield optimizers. People can farm it, so there's not constant sell pressure. And at the same time, now the treasury is generating and yielding even a lot more spirit. Now, the goal here is that first, in the revenue sharing vault, people can be getting Sinspirit. This gives us a way to use all those assets to buy back Sinspirit. Then it gives us a lot more spirit to incentivize people single staking their Sinspirit because now they have a place where there's a lot more liquidity to yield farm from. And second, on our platform, people can leverage their Sinspirit Spirit LPs, which means that they can be yielding even on a leverage, which also creates another use case for Sinspirit as lending. And with treasury assets as well, we can be buying back Sinspirit and burning it until it's at the peg again. So it's been our most profitable model, and we're hoping to basically use V2 as another way to help prepare Sinspirit and help protect its peg as well, at the same time as it's helping Scarab in another integration and creating value for the protocol. Um, then let's see. What other questions? Any plans to create a Scarab stablecoin or partner with something like Terra USD? Um, so no, I will admit we tinkered with the idea. I've sort of always wanted to create a sort of reserve bank for Scarab. We had tinkered with a few models to do this. We even looked at a protocol called Beanstalk Protocol on Ethereum as a potential solution, but after some considerations, we decided that it wasn't it didn't create enough stability. And here's the problem with attempting to create a stablecoin. For me, it comes twofold. First, a stablecoin needs incredibly deep liquidity, and sourcing all of that liquidity is a huge challenge in and of itself, which would be an entirely different battle that wouldn't in any way be helping Scarab directly. And at the same time, it would just be a massive challenge in and of itself. Then you have to find a way to store all of that liquidity and give rewards to people providing liquidity to those LPs. Now, if you need, let's say, a real stable coin that you're gonna have any sort of faith in, should be having, let's say, 150 to 200 million liquidity at the bare minimum. And finding a way to give a decent yield on a new stable coin to all that liquidity is a complex task. It's not that easy. So we have thought of some things, but we just think that it would be a lot of resources expended. And the benefits of creating this would take too long to kick in, because until you have that liquidity sourced and you can then have some use to it, those assets and creating a reserve bank of a stable coin like that would kind of be useless, because we still couldn't use it, because we would be risking depegging our stable coin to save the Scarab peg. So it would end up creating another pegged token that we could have severe problems trying to maintain. Um, so, let's continue from now. I was covered already. Just want the quick and dirty alpha rundown that I missed. Will you have your internet connection fixed by V2? Yeah, my internet is absolutely trash, and I hate it. I have to change providers. Um, um, will anything released prior to V2? Beach Pool still on the table? Yes, Beach Pool will be launched before V2. NFTs are prior to V2 as well. And we are also going to be launching our arbitrage bot before V2 as well. So yes, there, even though we are giving a lot of hype to V2 because it's the biggest change, it's not the only thing that we have in our pipeline. And in the shorter term, you do have um, those things to look forward to. We're going to be doing bribes for the next gauge on Beethoven for an 80/20 pool of Scarab Phantom. NFT, and again, the NFTs are going to be coming earlier. Um, so it's not like we're just going to be waiting on V2 forever. Now, there's other things coming out. At the same time, the Treasury has not stopped generating revenue, and it's continuously compounding. Um, Eventually, it's just going to have enough money to get us up there, which is fortunate, because basically we have managed to acquire, um, since we've managed to acquire a revenue stream for the protocol, even when we're sort of crab walking below peg, this means that we can still be growing out our treasury. And even if it takes a while, we can still start doing buybacks. Now, at the same time as treasury buildup is not as fast as I would like to at the moment, um, we are creating things to speed this up, um, and to give us more revenue streams. So we are going to be expanding our revenue streams even before V2 comes out, and we're still growing what we have in the treasury at the moment. Um, then, well, NFTs have staking utility. Yes, there will be, and there's a partnership for them as well. We will reveal some more updates about the NFTs and everything on them before launch day. But yes, the NFTs will have some staking utility. Okay, guys. How do you determine? Okay, so can you explain a bit how treasury funds and RBOT funds will be used? How do you determine when to deploy those funds and initiate buybacks? Um, Hard to see PEG approaching 0.5 again. Obviously, don't want it to just be X liquidity, but okay. So here's the thing. Um, so the treasury funds and the RBOT funds. Um, so the very first thing is the treasury right now will continue to compound. We might do sporadic buybacks from time to time, but the goal now is to expand the treasury, and it always has been. The reality is it's still not big enough, and it's still not deep enough, and we are going to be making it deep enough. And if at the end of this, I buy back every Scarab that's in circulation from the market, that to me is still a sign of a successful protocol. even if it took a while, because my promise is Scarab will always be at peg. Even if it has dips, I will always put you back to peg. So even if I end up buying all of the Scarab in circulation and putting Scarab at 1.0 peg, that to me is a sign of a working protocol. So we will continue to compound as necessary and expand our treasury funds. Now the RBot, here's the thing about the RBot. Once it's deployed, actually me and the other 3 devs or 2 devs are probably going to be using Phantom from our own wallets to put in the bot to run it, just to have more and to use the treasury funds that we have to be yielding as they are. The only reason for it is not to slow down treasury buildup, and we can just do a loan on the bot for long enough to create more Phantom for the treasury to run the bot without needing our funds, and having enough to just run it without any of our funds and not delay what we're yielding at the same time. So how do we determine that they will all be used is really a complex question, because it depends on a lot of factors. We know that people are very hype and FOMO driven. Right now, if we started doing massive buybacks, even if we got us to 0.8, which we could, or even 0.9, here's the issue. Nothing changed and there aren't updates right now. So people can just sell and wait for updates again. We prefer to play on FOMO and people wanting to not miss chances, because if we start doing buybacks like crazy and recklessly, yes, it's not just that we are used as exit liquidity. It's that if the treasury is empty, there is no bottom, and we can't ensure that the people in the protocol will be protected at all, because now there's no insurance fund. What's in the treasury is basically a Scarab insurance fund that even if things are going poorly, we have enough money to inject to pull it back up. If I spend everything I have and I just get covered down, I just destroyed my security, and now I'm adrift and waiting to see what happens if people are merciful or if people decide to buy back in. Now, I am not a big fan of losing control, and I think in a senior ops protocol, it's one of the most dangerous situations to be in. So that is why we haven't deployed that liquidity yet, and that is why we haven't done it yet. Now, that said, the way we are planning on doing this is throughout updates, and when we see that some bullishness is starting to pick up again, we pick up our marketing before updates are coming out, and then we deploy our treasury funds very carefully and slowly as to not make sure that the treasury doesn't get front run, but we'll start deploying them in pieces and in sporadic situations where we see that a little bit of a boost to try to create that bull effect and to create that bullish effect and that FOMO effect. That's when we start buying in. And so we're not gonna just do dry buybacks at random times, because if we had limitless funds, that would be fine. But since we do not, it's just too high of a risk. Um, so if there are no any more questions, um, okay, so there is another question. Okay, can you share the long-term vision here with V2 and beyond? Okay, so I have gotten a little bit um uh I've gone into the first part of this question, but I'll just get to the last part, and then you can check the video on for the AMA that's going to be published, which is going to have the full recording there. But so when all's said and done, who do you want to be in the Phantom ecosystem? How big is Scarab in your mind? Up price of S or G just as a player on Phantom. So I'll start with the last question, which is how big is Scarab? Not big at all. Like we have had this discussion with a few people. I don't look at Scarab as a big project. I didn't look at it as a big project when it had 26 million. And to be honest, even though we're proud of what we achieved, I would be hard pressed to say that our goals have been accomplished and that we don't we are not more ambitious than that, because I only really look at a project as sort of big when it surpasses 100 million TVL, and some projects tend to get inflated TVL, so even that sort of depends. But yeah, until a project surpasses 100 million, it's not really big. So no, we aren't that big on Phantom, not really. Um, but that said, our TVL is a bit misleading because there is a lot of liquidity in Scarab and G Scarab that isn't deployed on Scarab. We actually did have this sort of running joke where we said that when you look at a senior hash protocol, usually there's like a third of the liquidity that is in the TVL. That's what the real liquidity is. But in our case, that's actually different because there's a lot of liquidity in Scarab G Scarab that's deployed outside of our platform. So our TVL is actually deflated as opposed to inflated. Um, but yeah. Now, when all is said and done, who do you want to be in the Phantom ecosystem? Um, so here's the thing. Our big goal is not to be huge. That's not the goal. Um, it's to be reasonable. It's to be a project that just makes sense and creates real utility, that actually brings something useful to Phantom and creates value here. Um, as I have said, like I am not, which was probably ironic coming from someone who created a senior Ash protocol, but I'm not the biggest fan of game theory or Ponzi-nomics. It's because it's flawed and it doesn't create value. It distributes value, which is different. Um, Normal seigniorage and that sort of style of Ponzi-nomics does not ever actually create any real value. It just redistributes what people put in there, and that is useless. It can make a lot of people a lot of money, and that is fine. And like I have no criticisms of Seigniorage or Tomb Forks or whatever, because I made one myself, but it's not useful. It just makes some people some money, but it has no real utility at all. You're not offering anything to anyone, as opposed to, let's say, gambling. Um, and that is sort of a big issue. Um, that is a big issue um for me, because it means that we are failing one of our goals as devs, which is to bring value to Phantom. So when we want to add these things, when what we want to be is respected devs that people can look at Scarab and say that even if they don't agree with some of the things about it, even if they aren't personally invested, they can look at it and say it's a legitimate project with people that care and are trying to build something, and not just a bunch of another extra pair of shillers trying to make a quick buck and leave. Um, so we want to make sure that people know this, and that we can prove our point, and that Scarab can represent in other people's minds what we see it as and what our long-term vision for it is. And it's still a long road ahead of us. It's never been something that we thought of as easy, and it won't be. But it's a road that we're willing to travel, and we're going to continue to go ahead and 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 continue to grow upon. Um, did you cover the never seen before Phantom comment this earlier in the MA? So I have not. There is not. So currently there is not a mix. What we're doing as a mix of Liquid Driver and Taro, there isn't one really. But there's actually something else that we haven't covered yet, that we're gonna be announcing later, specifically relating to the lending LPs. We're gonna be adding an innovation there for leveraging LPs, but we will continue to reveal bits and pieces as we go along, before the updates, until we start revealing everything in full, when we're closer to the date for the V2 launch. Um, so there's another question which from Neat, which is, will you be buying bonds again? Yes, we do buy back some bonds every now and then. Um, to be honest, from something that we've learned from our experience running a Tomb protocol and a Senior Rush protocol is that bonds are almost effectively useless, and um we we prefer to be the only ones doing it, and we right now, and that's what we do, and we don't try to incentivize it, because the only real thing that they help is if you're buying Scarab, breaking liquidity and buying Scarab to make bonds, and the only real help there is because you're buying Scarab, because the bonds themselves, like taking it out of circulation, that doesn't do anything. What really does something is buying Scarab, because you're taking Scarab from the liquidity pool and putting Phantom in there, which helps balance the peg. But once that Scarab is in your wallet, if you send it to burn, or if you send it into a bonds contract, that really doesn't change anything. Sure, it's not in circulation, but you really didn't, like, that's not that piece of the puzzle isn't the part that affects the price action at all. So yeah, but yeah, we do buy back Scarab, because to us it's different, because we are the only ones that are always responsible for buying and having Scarab. So Scarab is something that our wallets are always um full of, and something that we really don't mind putting in bonds. Now, okay, this is gonna be the last question, because we've been going at it for almost an hour. So more of a fun random question. How do you and the team deal with the burnout? Okay. Well, to be honest, we all deal with it in different ways. Um, but I think we're all pretty good at dealing with that. Like, it doesn't affect us if we work for like an extended period of time, like crazy hours. That doesn't really affect us, and I think the only reason for it is that we actually enjoy this. But when it does get stressful, for me, I can't speak to the rest of the team, but for me, actually, I'll reveal my one of my rituals to you guys, which is I just either sit in my kitchen or go to a bar below my house, and I just order a glass of whiskey, smoke a cigarette late at night. Sometimes it's like 4 a.m. when I stop working, or 3 a.m. when I stop working. So I just drank a glass or two of whiskey at night before after work, smoke a cigarette or two or three, and then hit the sack, go to sleep, and relaxed and ready for the next day. So yeah, that's my personal ritual, and it actually does help me a lot. I try to basically, when I do this, either just put on some music, or not even have my phone with me, and just at that time, like, that's one of the very rare times where I'm not reachable at all, and because usually I'm always on my phone or I always have my PC on with my Discord, and I'm practically always reachable. Those times are the only times where if you text me, message me, call me, or whatever, I will not pick up and I will just ignore you. And yeah, that's how I do it. Helps me a lot because it allows me to think about just everything in general. And to be honest, even though it's 3 months now, we still feel really fortunate about um everything that happened. I mean, we started Scarab. I still say this because it's sort of funny. I mean, when I started Scarab, my portfolio was like what, $1,000. Um, we're just devs, and we are passionate about DeFi, and we know how to code, but um we were in university and taking school, and we just had an opportunity that we couldn't pass up on, and we just recognized that this was a chance that we might never have again. That hasn't changed, and even though it's been 3 months, um, I still feel really fortunate. So even when I'm exhausted, even when I'm tired, even when I'm frustrated, which it does happen a lot, and when things are down, is when people can be on you all the time and criticizing you and all that. But it even if I'm feeling down or worn down or exhausted, and I just spent a whole day working, and still just people are ragging my ass all day, um, like it is relaxing to me to think that I can complain, but like 3 months ago, my life was way different, and it wasn't for the better because these have been like the best 3 months of my life. So, even though it's stressful, even though it's hard, even though there's a lot of hard work and a lot of responsibilities, which can be very taxing, I think just relaxing, having a drink, having a nice smoke, and thinking about the fact that I am fortunate to be here and we're all fortunate to be here really does help. Sorry, I had said that this was the last question, but someone wants to come up here and speak, so I'm gonna let you join the audience, the speakers, and ask the question. Hey, man, I think you can accept.
Yeah, hello. How are you? Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, how are you? Hey guys
Yeah,
again.
I have a question.
My internet, you know how it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, what do you think about um first of all, sorry about my English because my native language is Spanish, so it's a little
Oh,
for
don't
me.
worry, man.
It's
Okay,
okay.
my question is, what do you think about migrate or bridging real assets, physical assets into DeFi projects?
So
You
synthetics, you mean? Like synthetics of
think?
stocks and things like that, and
Well,
commodities.
not only I'm more I'm more biased on real assets like for example real estates NFTs or commodities NFTs. I mean trying to bridge something into the blockchain and apply that to let's say like Scarab platform or any other platform, the DeFi platform. So bridging real assets like commodities like you say or mentioned. I think. What do you think about that?
Sorry for the delay. But actually, that's a really interesting question, and it's something me and the devs actually discussed just in our free time. Because I don't know if you guys saw this a few months ago. There was like a company that did basically a case study. It was proof of concept. It's not like in development yet, or commercialized, but it was just a proof of concept where they sold a house and the deed of the house was an NFT. Now, So here's where I'm at with NFTs and their transposability to the real world. I feel like humans, we as humans, we discovered in NFTs such an advanced technology and such a useful technology that our primitive brains have only really managed to utilize this, and since it's so recent, in GIFs and dumbass images and things like that, and profile pics that we all spend thousands of dollars on or hundreds of dollars on. And I think that is NFTs in a very proto basic embryonary state. Um, because what we're talking about here is digital ownership of an asset. So I really do think there's a lot of transposability into the real world with Scarab and house stories and and things like this being transposed into the digital world actually creates real utility because what what would a how different would a world be if you could have that as an NFT? If your house key could be an NFT that unlocks your digital yeah, a digital key, a digital lock that recognizes your NFT and unlocks your door. Things like this are utilities that are showing up in the real world, in the crypto world. And I think we're only going to continue to advance further into it. And as DeFi grows, I think those transferences where we merge crypto with the real world more and more um, are just going to keep growing. And I think it's a very exciting market. I think there's a lot of space for it. I think we're only really at the tip of the iceberg. I really like the idea, for example, of the NFTs, NFTs, and governance NFTs because they give enough because of that digital ownership of an asset. How you can be making tokens, for example, that were never tradable. Now you can be trading governance and the rest of the remaining revenue that's going to come from that asset. Um, Things like this are the future for me. One of the most exciting aspects of what's coming out of DeFi at the moment. So I hope.
The reason I ask you that question is because in the last 50 days I have been developing myself a DeFi project. In fact, I have been doing developing a project, pre-COVID. Yeah, I don't know how to say in English. Pre-COVID, yeah, pre-incubation project. And it was based on carbon emissions. And I wanted to bring that project and to share that project with Scarab because I see a real potential because I'm also an investor here. So I wanted to. I'm looking for a long-term profitable platform like Scarab. So I wanted. Okay, I was started to thought, of how can I help this platform? So I wanted to
Um,
share that. And just today, I wrote some emails to BMW factories and General Motors. And today, General Motors replied back to me about they want to sponsorship this kind of development. And it's a little hard to explain here, but it will bring real emissions, real utility to any platform. Basically, what a factory does is because they make products, they throw CO2 emissions onto the environment. So they need to buy oxygen in other part of the world. So they need certificates. So I tell them, okay, we can bring those certificates into an NFT and we can charge them a fee for that. And they got interested in that. So
okay,
I wanted to,
so
yeah, that's
um,
my idea. I wanted to give that idea to share that project with Scarab. I sent you even a message. So
no,
I
I'm sorry if I didn't see your message, but this really isn't the place for this. But do DM me. We can discuss things in private. I just don't think like the CMA is the place for that. Um,
yeah, I know.
but yes, let's discuss this privately. Thank you for your question, man. Um, I I can talk to you about this Well, probably not today, but tomorrow I can talk to you about this. But right now I don't think this is the appropriate place for this, man. But thank you for coming
Yeah,
on.
I agree. I agree. Just took the opportunity because I know you're very busy. So anyway,
No,
I
no,
just
of
want
course,
to know.
I understand.
I wanted to know
And
your vision about this. So anyway,
no, I get it. And yeah, no problem, man. You set an opportunity and you reached the trust me. I can respect that. But yeah, we can talk in privately about this. This isn't the place for that.
sure. Sure. Thank you.
But no problem. Thank you, man.
Okay.
Um, okay, so I think we ran out of the questions. Does anyone want to come up here and say anything else? I think we're good. So thank you everyone for coming up here and listening to my ramblings and my crazy just rambles of DeFi stuff. Always a pleasure to talk to you guys. I wanted to finish this and wrap this up by thanking everyone. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you and checking out the community and running a protocol. The community like you guys has been extremely rewarding. It's tough, but it does give a lot in terms of personal accomplishment and just satisfaction. And we're very happy about what we built, not just as Scarab itself and the systems that it has, or anything coding wise, but the community that we have built and the fact that the people who trust us is very meaningful. So I wanted to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank everyone for showing up, asking questions. Always a pleasure to have you as always. And yeah, let's wrap this up. Thank you for coming, guys. Bye bye.